Hi, I'm Quence, and you're watching my top 10 movies of 2025. I spend most of my time writing and talking about video games, but I'm also obsessed with movies. I write a lot of reviews for them on my Letterboxd, I watch a lot of them, and I watched a ton of them in 2025. Does that mean you should care what I think? No, but I care what I think, and I like to make a record of my thoughts at the end of each year in the form of these videos, and I'm doing it again, now. As is always the case, there were many great movies that came out last year, movies that I really loved, and it was very hard to narrow them down for this list. I had a short list of dozens of movies that I thought potentially could be in my top 10 or at least as an honorable mention of some kind, and I whittled it down to only the ones that I truly loved, and it was not easy. Before getting into my top 10 proper, I do have one special award that I'd like to hand out to recognize an outstanding movie that is not part of my official top 10. This year I'm giving that award to Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. One of the reasons this is in this special category is because most people will not be able to see this movie until 2026. They took it on the road and did a tour in a few cities in the US and Canada, and I got to see one of those. So this is technically a 2025 movie, and I saw it in 2025. If you don't know what Nirvana the band is, you're like most people, especially non-Canadians. It's a duo made up of two people, hence duo, Matt Johnson and Jay McCarroll, and they have been doing this as a web series. Then it evolved into a TV show, which was canceled and is now sort of in limbo, and now it has a movie. It is about two best friends who have a band and are desperately trying to get a show at a place called the Rivoli, a restaurant that to them holds great importance, though it really doesn't to anyone else. I have loved this show and this group and this concept since the early days. It's incredibly funny. The chemistry between these two guys is endearing. The way that the shows and the movie are shot and edited is genius. Matt Johnson, who also did movies like The Dirties and Blackberry, has this style where he shoots tons of footage, and often they work around things in the edit and completely change what the movie or show ends up being based on what they got in the edit versus what they originally thought they were going to get. This movie continues all of that stuff but takes it to new heights. There are some really effective genre parodies throughout the movie. Another reason, though, that it's here in my special mentions and not as an official top 10 movie is because it is very specific to my heart and soul, my sense of humor and my tastes. I'm very close to this movie. I really love Nirvana the band. As I said, I have since I first discovered it many years ago, and it holds a very special place in my heart. And I almost feel too close to it to put it in my top 10. For me, this is a 5-star movie, but I don't know that it will resonate with everyone or people who aren't familiar with their work, but I think that it will find an audience, and I think that even if you have no idea who these guys are, the movie should still work for the most part, and you will still have a great time, and it will lead you to finding their other work, which I strongly recommend. So that's my special award. It goes to, again, Nirvana the band, the show, the movie. And with that out of the way, I will talk now about my official top 10 movies of 2025. I've got kind of an odd list this year, I think. There are quite a few big budget, blockbuster, crowd-pleasing, critically acclaimed movies on here that will not surprise anyone to find out that I loved them. And then mixed in with those are a handful of smaller, more indie projects that I think many people either didn't like or just didn't see. So I don't know, some years I feel good about my list in a pretentious way that I have all these cool indie movies and obscure directors and weird, diverse actors and things like that. And this year I feel like my list skews much more towards the mainstream, but that's okay. It's just what happened to be the movies that I felt the strongest about and were the closest to my heart from 2025. And they begin with number 10, which is one of the weird ones. A big, bold, beautiful journey. So this is my opportunity to feel smarter than everyone else and feel like, wow, I'm a cool film buff kind of guy because this movie's in my top 10, because this movie wasn't received very well. I don't think most people liked it. It didn't get a great reception. It didn't get much of a reception at all. It's from a director named Kogonada, who has done some really, really cool, insightful movies in the past. Columbus and After Yang are the two that I really liked. This is by far his largest, biggest budget, most high-profile movie. It's got some A-list actors in it. It stars Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie. Doesn't get much more A-list than them. And they end up going on this, well, there's really no other way to characterize it. It's a big, bold, beautiful journey in the form of this GPS from a rental car that guides them and tells them where they need to go, and they end up having this surreal experience with each other. It's a romance, but it's kind of this magical realism, fantasy, adventure story. I would compare it to something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or from last year or the year before, All of Us Strangers, in that there are these flights of fancy throughout, dreamlike scenarios where it seems like maybe things aren't 100% real. And the movie never quite comes down on the side. It's not even really interested in it. That's why I use the label magical realism, because magical, fantastical things occur throughout this movie, but at no point do the characters really spend a lot of time wondering why those things are happening or how they could possibly be happening. And it's not like the movie is trying to play with you and make you wonder, oh, is this real? Is it all a dream? That's not really the point. The point is just to have this fantastical, metaphorical journey with these two characters, and you get to get this insight into their lives and their relationships, and it's really all just one big metaphor for what a new relationship is like. What is it like to be with someone new, and for the first time, you're sharing with them all of the things from your past, all of your traumas, heartaches, and triumphs, and at the same time, you're learning about theirs. And are those two things compatible? How much do you even like this person? You're learning all those things about each other. This movie has that exact premise, only here, the characters actually get to inhabit those past memories, not just talk about them. It also has a score from Joe Hisaishi, the man who composed the music for Spirited Away and other Miyazaki movies. Incredible. I love his music, very quiet, pleasant tunes. Everything about this movie to me is just so beautiful and lovely and heartwarming, and it really had a profound effect on me. And I don't know if it's something that I will be alone in, or if in the coming months and years when this movie's on streaming and digital, maybe it will be reevaluated. Maybe you need to have the right mindset and really vibe with what it's going for. It is definitely very sentimental. It wears its heart on its sleeve. And if you're not there for that vibe, then you might not be there for this movie. But I loved it. Number 9 on my list is another heartwarming experience that I had, and that movie is Predator: Badlands, the newest movie in the Predator franchise from director Dan Trachtenberg, who has become the shepherd of the Predator franchise after working on Prey and also last year's animated film Predator: Killer of Killers, which was also kick-ass. This is the first Predator movie that has a predator as the protagonist instead of the villain. What a bold, original swing for this franchise to say, we have seen this world on the outskirts of all these Predator movies. We have seen hints of it. We know there is a Predator culture. We know there are different Predator tribes. It's been glanced in comic books and video games and other spin-offs, but never really in depth in a movie before this. And this one knocks it out of the park. It is also not even the same genre as most other Predator movies, which are really action, thriller, borderline horror films. This is a sci-fi action adventure movie. It's closer to Star Wars than any of the other Predator movies have ever been. But that makes perfect sense because what else would it be? Of course, that is what it would be if you were to focus on the predators themselves. Yes, they're horrifying when there's one of them hunting us, but from their perspective, they're not monsters to each other necessarily. So for them, this is a totally different thing. We are seeing a whole other side of this creature that we've never seen explored before. For me, it really, really worked, and I also just loved the structure of this movie. The way that it sets things up and pays them off later on really hit all the sweet spots for me. It's a very, very satisfying movie to watch, and when you're watching it with a crowd in a theater or by yourself, you can just feel the energy and how the movie gets you to fall in love with these brand new characters. Sure, you know who predators are, but you've never met this predator. And you've also never loved a predator before, outside of thinking that they're cool looking. This movie dares you to really love a predator, and it gets you to do so in very smart, efficient ways that don't feel overly obvious or manipulative. And that goes for all of the characters in the movie. That goes for the other aspect of this movie, which ties into a certain other franchise. And I really thought that was very tastefully done as well. Such a crowd pleaser, such a kick-ass movie. I want more of these. I always want more Dan Trachtenberg, more Predator. Let's do the full-on Alien versus Predator crossover again, and let's do it right this time. Predator Badlands, kick ass. This brings me to the next movie on my list, number 8. And if you thought that A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey was a weird pick that didn't vibe with everybody, I've got one even weirder that vibed with even fewer people. And that movie is Love Me. I'm going to be honest, there are a lot of parallels between this movie and Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey that kind of make it pretty obvious that I guess I have a type of movie that works for me very well. And this is another one that is a big, weird, fantastical metaphor for relationships. Although I would say this one goes a little bit deeper than that, and it is also about what it is to be a human being and to be alive on this planet and to have consciousness. And it also deals in a big way with the internet and social media and influencers and who we see in our social media feeds and how we may or may not aspire to be like them. This movie stars Steven Yeun and Kristen Stewart as robots, essentially, as artificial intelligence, at a time when artificial intelligence is not getting the best reputation in our society for good reason. Here is a movie that asks you to fall in love with two AIs. And you know what? It worked for me in WALL-E, and it worked for me here as well. The premise and the execution of this movie are so oddball. Much of the movie takes place with these two AIs interfacing with each other, not in real space, not in reality. They don't have bodies, so they create these worlds where they can interact with each other. And sometimes that takes the form of live action segments with the two actors I mentioned just now. And sometimes it takes place with animation, and not necessarily good animation, kind of stiff social media Fortnite style animation in an intentional way, but still, it is something that you really have to buy into to take it seriously. For me, that enhanced the power of this movie. The fact that it affected me so deeply and I found it so powerful, in spite of how utterly ridiculous it was and how simplistic the animation and filming techniques I was seeing on screen were, it was able to hit me so hard because the themes are that meaningful and that important. I'm such a big fan of both of these actors. Pretty much any time I see Steven Yeun is in something, I feel like he has a 100% hit rate with me. I'm ready to die for that man and go see whatever he puts into a theater because I think he's a great actor and he has really great taste in the projects he selects. And this is one that was really special and personal to me. I recommend people give it a shot if they don't know this one. I think it is worth checking out, but yeah, this might be one of the ones on my list that really is more just for me than most other people. But now I can get back to some movies that a lot of people loved, including number 7 on my list, Weapons. This movie had just about everything going for me personally. Directed by Zach Kreger, who did Barbarian, which I loved, and of course, Whitest Kids You Know, which I also love. But now he is really doing this horror thing and really doing it right. He's doing a new Resident Evil movie next, and I can't wait to see that. But Weapons, besides Zach Kreger, also is very Stephen King-y. And I love Stephen King, and this really feels like Needful Things to me in the way that it is about a lot of different people in a small town who are shaken up by an extraordinary event. And throughout the movie, you cut back and forth between different perspectives of people in the town, getting to know them, getting to understand them, their lives, how they view each other. And every time you get to see one of those perspectives, a little bit more of this mystery is unraveled. This mystery being that all of these kids one morning just decided to open their doors of their homes and flee into the night, and we don't know where they are. And that is a real setup for a bullshit J.J. Abrams mystery box if I ever heard one. How easy would that be to not have a satisfying conclusion? What could it possibly be that's satisfying? You know, they spend so much time building up the mystery and talking about it, and you're thinking, how are they ever going to pay this off and make it make sense? And somehow they stick the landing, for my money at least. It not only makes sense, but is interesting and different and scary and weird and fucked up. And it all builds up to this final sequence at the end that is so bananas, so chaotic and bonkers after this slow, Zodiac-esque build of a movie with all these different details of the mystery and people trying to bring it together. And then it all just culminates in this batshit crazy thing that happens at the end. And I absolutely ate it all up. Such a smart, tightly constructed film. And also in a subtle or maybe not so subtle way about something that is very relevant and important for modern times. But it works on its own as just a classic, I would venture to guess, timeless horror story. So happy we have movies like this one coming out. It's my number 7 and it's Weapons. My number 6 then is from another one of my favorite working directors today, Begonia from Yorgos Lanthimos. Yorgos Lanthimos, just the best fucking guy. Everything he does, I am immediately excited to go see it, and especially if he's working with the great Emma Stone. She is so cool. She picks so many cool projects. Just like I said about Steven Yeun, if she is going to do something, I am on board. I'm ready to see what that thing is. And her partnership with Yorgos Lanthimos has been quite fruitful. Fruitful once again here with Begonia, in which she plays a CEO of a company who is kidnapped by 2 guys, and they believe she is an alien, and that is why they have kidnapped her, to try to torture her and get information out of her. This is a remake of another movie that I did not see, and from what I've heard, it's pretty closely follows the trajectory and script of that original movie. So it's possible that most of my praise, or at least some of my praise for this one, should be credited back towards that one. But you know what? I saw this one, and that's what I'm going to talk about. There's a mystery in the center of this movie that unravels in a not dissimilar way from Weapons, in that you really don't know for sure who you're supposed to be rooting for in this movie. Is Emma Stone an alien? Is she not an alien? Even if she's not an alien, is she a good person or a bad person? Are the people who kidnapped her, one played by the incredible Jesse Plemons, are they good people? Are they good people doing something bad? Or are they complicated people who are doing something that you actually like? I mean, nobody likes CEOs, right? Maybe they should all be kidnapped and tortured in a basement. I didn't say it, just putting that out there. And the movie never makes it easy for you. It never lets you feel like you 100% know whose side you should be on. And I loved it for that. It keeps flipping you back and forth, revealing new little details and quirks about all of these characters to make you think, oh, I'm kind of sympathetic with them for that, but I'm also sympathetic with this person for that. They're all very complicated, all very shades of gray, and that makes it for a much more compelling movie. And most of the movie is just these three people hanging out in a house or in a basement talking to each other. And the amount of tension and suspense Yorgos Lanthimos is able to derive from just that, from just people in a room chatting it up, unbelievable, incredible to watch. Again, like Weapons, very timely subject matter, but not in a way that you need to be watching this in the current day for it to resonate. It's something that I think has resonated for a while and will resonate for many years to come until we all die eventually. I really, really, really loved Begonia, another great collaboration between these filmmakers and actors. Okay, but sometimes I like my aliens to be unambiguous. I want to know they're an alien, 100% sure up front, no questions asked. And that's the case with my number 5 movie, Avatar, Fire and Ash. If you know me, then you know that I love James Cameron and I love the Avatar franchise unabashedly. No shame, I loved it since the first one. I fucking loved The Way of Water, and I loved Fire and Ash as well. This movie has gotten some flack for being very similar to The Way of Water and not doing as much that's new or spectacular in novel ways. And that's very fair. This is absolutely a companion piece to The Way of Water. However, like I said, I loved The Way of Water. And so watching this movie felt like I got to spend more time in this world, more time with these characters. And in my opinion, where it differentiates itself from that second movie is by going deeper into the themes that I was already interested in previously. There are several threads that are set up in Way of Water that I was really excited to see followed up on in later movies. And here you get the follow-ups. You get, in some ways, the conclusions, or at least the next section of the arcs for many of these characters, or the ideas that were introduced in that movie. There are actors introduced in that movie that at the time I thought, why are they there? Jermaine Clement, Edie Falco, why are they there? This movie, Fire and Ash, answers that question and then some, and it introduces Varong and the Ash clan in this movie, who are just incredible. She's one of the greatest villains. Una Chaplin does such a great job playing her. Loved it every time she lights up the screen in this movie. And is the action a little bit redundant and repetitive? Yeah. Is it also fucking awesome? Yeah. I loved it. I cannot wait for more Avatar. They better be making 4 and 5. James Cameron's been kind of cagey about it, but the people keep coming out for it. This movie is also much darker than the first movie or Way of Water. It is about grief. It is about a family who is dealing with the loss of a loved one. And there are some truly dark scenes in this movie. Quietly dark. Not in a way like torture or anything like that, or brutal murder, but just the implications of potential darkness and characters reaching real rock bottom low points that I think are brave and original steps for this crazy sci-fi action franchise, this blockbuster movie that virtually every person on the planet is probably going to end up seeing in some form or another. This movie also gets so weird with it. It's really going into Dune levels of weird concepts like space whales who meet and have space whale languages and councils and meetings to discuss whether or not they should defend themselves against the sky people, and human-alien hybrids growing, and magical goddesses that are funguses that infect people and planets like parasites. Stuff that is so off the beaten path, even from just the first movie, which was more or less just a fantasy romance in space. James Cameron now has the license to just go hog wild with it, and man, I am here for it. Loved Fire and Ash, can't wait to see more. Now entering my top 4 with number 4, and yeah, it is another science fiction action movie about an alien. Sorry everyone, but my number 4 is James Gunn's Superman, the first real official kicking off of the new DC cinematic universe headed up by James Gunn, even though kind of that already happened with Suicide Squad and, The Suicide Squad, important distinction, and the Peacemaker TV show. This is the first real cinematic debut of it, the official new canon. And man, oh man, I love everything about this movie. This is another one that of course I was going to love this movie. I am such a big fan of James Gunn. I really am in love with pretty much everything that he has put out, and I think he is the absolute best person right now for this job. After sitting through and suffering for years watching the old Zack Snyder DC universe, and watching him just massacre these beloved characters on screen over and over again, what a refreshing delight it was to see Superman done effectively here on screen for the first time since the 70s. This Superman is not perfect, not by any stretch. He's human, and that's really the point of this movie, and that's what makes it so powerful, is by stressing that although he comes from another planet, he was raised as a human and he lives as a human, and he has very human emotions and very human flaws, and yet he also is not a giant raging asshole. He does not murder people. He does not snap necks. He is a guy trying to do the right thing. He is earnest. He is sincere. He believes in people. He believes in hope, truth, justice, the American way, yada, yada, yada. James Gunn has made a career depicting criminals and rebels and underdogs, and there's been a lot of snarky, edgy humor in his movies. And that is still on display here, but James Gunn is a smart man, and he understands that that's not who Superman is. That is, quite often, who other people in the world are and how society can feel in general. And that's exactly why Superman is so necessary and so powerful in this movie, is because he stands as this beacon of light amidst all that cynicism. I loved this depiction of him, and that love extends to all the other characters in the cast: Lois, Lex, Jimmy Olsen, Crypto. Crypto in this movie is great. Leave it to James Gunn to make a CGI dog very lovable and a fan favorite. I just think this movie is exactly what our planet needs right now. I wish we had a real Superman, but this is the next best thing. All right, top 3. So now you know this is the real shit. Number 3 on my list this year is Sinners. Thank God for Ryan Coogler. Thank God for Michael B. Jordan. For my money, the best pairing of an acclaimed director with a former alum of Friday Night Lights since Yorgos Lanthimos and Jesse Plemons. Forgive me, because I'm going to once again compare one of the movies on my list to Stephen King, but Sinners very much has that Stephen King feel to me. It's a supernatural story with some very high concept supernatural stuff that goes down, but it takes its time getting there, and a lot of the movie is devoted to introducing you to the characters that live in this town and how they interact with each other, what their lives are like. And once the shit starts going down, it's more meaningful because you actually have an understanding of who these people are and where they're coming from. And I would have been happy to just sit there for another hour and live in this town. To me, that's the mark of many great science fiction or fantasy movies, is when you're truly invested in the characters to the point where you would be a fan of the movie whether or not the supernatural stuff happens. And this movie could have just been a period piece, and just been about this particular period in history, about race relations and music and all these different subjects, which it has. And then also there's monsters involved. And that is the kind of thing I like to see. The musical scenes are so good in this movie, and a couple of them get really wild and crazy. You have Ludwig Göransson doing the score, who also did Black Panther and many other really big scores. I originally was a fan of him because of the TV show Community and his work with Donald Glover, and he is able to mix this blend of influences into everything he does. In this case, it's American folk music and Irish music and blues and soul and rock and roll from different eras that all come together, particularly in one sequence of this film. Such a crazy thing that I've never really seen on screen before or heard with mine ears before. That again is ancillary, or not really ancillary, but complements the log line of this movie, the thing that you're seeing it for. This is just another layer that's right on top of it that is just as awesome. And you didn't even ask for it. This movie is just giving you stuff you didn't even know you wanted. And then once that shoe does drop in that third act of this movie and things finally start hitting the fan, oh baby, it's good, it is exciting, it is scary, it's chilling, it's upsetting, and it is fun. Has a perfect ending, actually a couple of perfect endings. What can you say? This movie was a huge crowd pleaser, and deservedly so. Ryan Coogler has his fingers on the pulse of what audiences in this country like, I think, and man, Sinners is awesome. Hey, so you know how I've brought up Stephen King twice already in this video? Well, then it may be no surprise that my second favorite movie of 2025 was actually based on a Stephen King story. That story and that movie are The Life of Chuck. This movie comes from director and writer Mike Flanagan, who has become kind of a go-to guy for Stephen King adaptations and is one of my absolute favorite working directors in horror or otherwise, especially for other shows like Midnight Mass, which, by the way, featured Friday Night Lights alum Zach Gilford. I don't know, something about these FNL alums making things good. So with the Stephen Kinginess, this is kind of in a trilogy of movies on my list alongside Weapons and Sinners. But in a thematic and tonal way, this is maybe the third movie in a trilogy along with Love Me and A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. This is another strange, surreal, fantastical story that is also quiet and beautiful and about what it means to be alive. To explain any more than that about the plot of the movie, I think would be giving away too much if you haven't seen it. And honestly, I don't even know that I could really explain it or do it justice. But essentially, it is what the title says. It is about the life of Chuck. Tom Hiddleston does, in fact, play a guy named Chuck. And he does a really good job, but he's not even necessarily the main actor in this movie. There's a lot of different actors in this movie. There are a few different segments of this movie that are very different from each other. And I think it's such an awesome way to watch a movie if you just go into this one in particular completely blind, because the way that it unfolds is totally surprising. And I had no idea where things were headed from 1 minute to the next, and I was really, really blown away by the end result. This movie is about what it means to be a human being and how important and special and meaningful just your sheer existence can be, regardless of who you are. It's not about being heroic necessarily. It's not about being a celebrity or making some profound impact on society or saving the universe from aliens. It's about living a relatively ordinary life and occasionally having regrets in that life, opportunities that you take, opportunities that you don't take, relationships that you do or do not form along the way, and sometimes you have little moments of triumph, and it's about holding on to those moments and how valuable those moments can be, and what a difference you can make in other people's lives, maybe without even realizing it. Just such a staggering, moving, beautiful, resonant work that really, really affected me in a deep way. I found the themes of this extremely relatable, yet profound. The way that it was laid out and structured felt very exciting and different and fascinating to watch. And on rewatching it, you will also find that you understand or think about things from earlier parts of the movie in a much different way than you do the first time you view it. But the movie also doesn't harp on those things, doesn't beat you over the head at the end saying, huh, do you get it now? Do ya? Huh? It's just something that you get to experience and live with quietly inside of yourself. And there are some really great musical dance sequences in this movie that are just pure joy, pure beauty and excitement and expression of the human spirit and how we can all just put aside our differences and dance together. And that's very, very corny, but damn it, I'm very, very corny. And I really, really, really loved The Life of Chuck. So much that it was my second favorite movie of the year. But I only have room for one more movie in my top 10 list, and it's my favorite movie of the entire year. And if you're paying attention to movies, you probably noticed there's one I haven't mentioned yet, and maybe it's clear what it's going to be. So I'll say it. It's One Battle After Another, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. I know, I'm sorry, it feels like this movie and P.T. Anderson have become emblematic of the problematic white guy wannabe film buff and thinking that you're better than other people because you're into P.T. Anderson movies. At least that's sort of become the director, the trope to make fun of the day. Listen, I want you to know, I've loved him long before this movie came out. Magnolia is what I tend to refer to as my favorite movie of all time. And here we are 26 years later, and I think he has just gotten better. I think this is Paul Thomas Anderson working at the height of his powers, and One Battle After Another brings together some of my favorite elements of his past movies. The frenetic pace and constant score of Punch Drunk Love, the pathos and family trauma of Magnolia, the social and political commentary of The Master, and the madcap lunacy of Inherent Vice. Every frame of this film is so self-assured. There is nothing that is on screen that the director did not 100% intend to be on screen. He's got the talent, he's got the money, he's got the experience, he's got the time, and he put together what I consider to be a masterpiece. Leonardo DiCaprio is so good in this movie, and he's not playing his usual type, who tends to be, more or less the coolest guy in the room. This movie is like, what if the dude from The Big Lebowski wandered into Sicario? He's this goofy, comedic guy flailing around from scene to scene, trying his best, but also kind of just getting in the way of everybody else. And he plays it so well and so funny. And this movie is one of the funniest movies of the year, in spite of not technically being a comedy. It's also a movie about Nazis and racists coming together to persecute other people and minorities because of their prejudices, and rioting and taking over towns, and the little people having to rise up and fight back and take them on. And hey, doesn't that just hit a little bit around this time in our society? I loved that this movie was not afraid to tackle that subject matter. But more so, it also doesn't depict one side or another necessarily as the truly heroic or perfect or ideal side. Particularly the angle that resonated with me from this movie was the idea of passing down your experience and your teachings from one generation to the next. Because DiCaprio and his generation they give it their all. They gave it their all when they were younger. We flash forward to when they're older. He has fallen out of favor a little bit. He's no longer really in the game, not part of the revolution as he once was. But his daughter is taking up that fight. And to me, the core of this story is about parents raising their kids and making them into something better than themselves. Saying, hey, I tried to fight the good fight. It didn't work out for me, but I'm not going to stop you from fighting the good fight. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to tell you to be safe, and I'm going to say, go get him, Tiger. And that is precisely the message that we need right now, and probably the message we have always needed. Unfortunately, it always does seem to fall on the shoulders of whatever the next generation is to affect change. Maybe one of these days, one of the generations will actually succeed at it in a permanent way. We can keep on hoping and keep on trying, but that's the point. That's what I'm saying. Keep on hoping, keep on trying, keep on fighting. To me, that's the resonating message of this film. And on top of that, it's just so goddamn entertaining to watch. It's funny, the action is great, it's exciting, intense, and suspenseful all the way through. It's a long-ass movie, never does it drag for a second. And it has some of the most memorable, indelible imagery from last year's movies, particularly that one sequence that you're picturing it in your head already if you saw the movie, of going up and down on this steep road with various hills in and out in one of the greatest car chase sequences I've ever seen in a movie. This one has everything. It just has every single thing that you could possibly want from a movie. And that's why One Battle After Another is my favorite movie that I watched that was new in 2025. However, I couldn't help myself. I'm going to squeeze in 10 honorable mentions, movies that I really, really loved, that I will just briefly run through that didn't make it onto my official top 10 list, but nonetheless, I recommend everybody watch if you haven't already. In alphabetical order, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. This is the movie Guillermo del Toro was born to make. Monsters, all these things, all these themes from his past movies come together in an awesome way. Really faithful to the Frankenstein story in many ways, but strays in others. Excited to see what Del Toro does next, if he decides to really move away from this type of movie. But this is like a perfect capper and very emblematic of his career up to this point. Is This Thing On? Bradley Cooper starring Will Arnett as a divorced dad who decides to become a stand-up comic. I loved this movie. In fact, it was really close to being towards the bottom of my actual top 10 list, but I pushed it off. And it's just very funny, very sweet. Another one about relationships in, I think, a very honest, real way, and with some good stand-up comedy bits that felt true to life. K-pop Demon Hunters. Who doesn't love this movie? This movie rules. It's all the kind of things that I love: action, comedy, great animation, and of course, a great soundtrack, if for no other reason it deserves a mention, because I'm still listening to those songs. No Other Choice from Park Chan-wook. The guy's another master director, and this is a really great movie. It is about the consequences of capitalism, which, hey, we've seen that before, but you know what? It's still a thing. We got to keep talking about it because it's still a goddamn thing. And this movie does it in a very, very funny, smart, entertaining way. Presence. I love Steven Soderbergh. I love that he does so many different kinds of movies and he just never lets up. He never stops. This is a ghost story from the perspective of a ghost. What a cool idea. And I thought really, really well shot and really well done. Roof Man. I loved Roof Man, starring Channing Tatum and Kirsten Dunst. They're just so goddamn likable. This is based on a true story about a real guy who committed some crimes, but by all accounts, is a great, nice guy and doesn't deserve to have anything bad happen to him. I really fell in love with the characters in this movie, and it's about a guy who lives inside a Toys R Us, which is like, that's just a dream of mine. That's just a fantasy that I have. So this was wish fulfillment for me in many ways. The Testament of Ann Lee. This is based on the actual founder of the Shaker religion, which is not something I was familiar with at all, but I thought this was great. This is a musical in a sense. There are a lot of actual traditional Shaker songs that they sing that I thought were really well done and cool and woven throughout the movie in creative ways that felt kind of natural, but also kind of crazy in a way that you almost get caught up in them like you might if you were in some kind of religion slash cult sort of thing. Interestingly told story, and I thought Amanda Seyfried did an excellent job. The Thing with Feathers. I feel like nobody else saw this movie. Benedict Cumberbatch is dealing with a death, and the movie is all about grief, and that's another one of those themes that can just be endlessly rehashed and worked out in movie after movie because it's such a universal theme of all of humanity, and I thought this was one of the best ones I've seen ever. Done on film. Really, really upsetting and harrowing, but in a cathartic way. Does some weirder stuff with the effects and the concepts, but I found it to be a tearjerker. Wake Up Dead Man. This is the third latest entry in the Benoit Blanc saga, and it's another great mystery. This one is about religion in a lot of ways. I love how Rian Johnson uses these movies to voice what feels like his take on current politics and social issues. They're not just whodunit mysteries for the sake of whodunit. They also have something to say, and this one is another one of those very well done. And my last one is Warfare. Alex Garland movie that I wasn't anticipating, but is another guy who I just love everything he does, even when not everybody else does love everything he does. I do. And this is a war movie that is so visceral. I'm sorry to use the word visceral, but it is. The sound design is incredible in this film. I know there's been some discourse about the nature of the politics of the movie that I won't get into. For me, it all worked, and I just thought this was a really powerful, upsetting, important movie about the impact of military violence. There you have it. Those are my top 10 movies of 2025. I thought it was another excellent year for movies. There were so many that I really, really liked. Some that came out earlier in the year that when looking through, I almost forgot I even saw. I thought, didn't that come out 17 years ago? That was 2025, really? I'm sure some that I didn't mention that people loved, and I'm sure I mentioned some that people are like, huh? That movie? Huh? You put Love Me on your list? What about Hamnet? What about Eddington? What about F1? Well, let me know in the comments. Let me know what I left out or what you think about my list, or don't. If you want to hear my thoughts and my reviews as they happen throughout the year, you can follow me on Letterboxd. My name is Quence on Letterboxd, so check me out there. Or you can subscribe to this channel. I don't really do that many videos, but I will be doing my top 10 TV shows, which will also be on the channel, so check that out for 2025 if you like TV. And I also have a video game podcast called Bad with Games that's available on another channel that you can check out if you like hearing me talk about other media stuff. And, well, that's it. I'm excited to see what happens in 2026. If we survive to the end of this year, and if movie theaters survive, I'm enjoying them while they last. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I'm Quence. Goodbye.